It is the 27th of December. Today I realized that I have finished reading 57 non-fiction books this year of 2018. Till date, I still probably will read a couple of more books before the end of the year. So maybe I'll get it to 60. The number 57 might denote different things to different people when it comes to book reading, because it depends on how many books you read or how many books the people around you read. So to a person like my father, 57 is not a great number. I'm pretty sure he's read more. But to someone who doesn't read as often, 57 would seem like a lot. So I'm going to share in this video why I've read 57 non-fiction books this year and what difference it's made in my life. I've always been an avid book reader. I've started with fiction and I've read a lot of fiction when I was a kid, and I grew up into, again, still reading fiction but also reading a lot of non-fiction books. And this year particularly, I think I've read more non-fiction books than I've previously read. It was an intentional choice because though yes, I love stories and I love getting lost in somebody's imagination, I also wanted to learn a lot more, and I felt that it was easier for me to read a fiction book, so I could do that without having to force myself to do that. I could do that without having to put that much effort in. But that was kind of like my downtime. I would read fiction books whenever I was tired or free, or when I didn't want to get into the heavy stuff. But I intentionally focused on non-fiction this year, and in the beginning of the year I decided that I wanted to read at least 100 non-fiction books. Now that was a tall order because I hadn't really tracked how much I've read non-fiction of before. I have a lot of non-fiction books, but I've not read all of them, or I've just referred a few of them for certain chapters. I've not read it like thoroughly. I've not grasped everything that book has to offer, and so I knew it was a tall order, and I had this in mind that I have to read 100 non-fiction books. I would also read fiction books, and I haven't counted how many. This I've tracked. I've written it on an Excel sheet. Every month I would update it whenever I would finish a book, and I just looked at it today and it was 57. There's still a lot of books on there that I've read like 3/4 of or half of. I haven't quite finished them, and I've not counted those books. I've counted the ones which I've completely gained everything from. Now why I did this was, as I said, I wanted to expand my knowledge. I wanted to improve my thinking capacity. I wanted to just expand my world basically, and reading does that to you. That is one of the most important things that I have gotten out of reading, is the expansion of my world, because you are in a particular city, you are in a particular state, a particular country in a particular moment in time. But with books you can travel to any moment in time, any moment in history, and you can learn from anybody, and that is the expansion of your world. And though you can do that even with fiction, I think with non-fiction you get to meet real people, you get to hear from real people, you get to have your hand on the pulse, and you get to connect history with the present. You get to connect different people's experiences with the present. You get to learn from experts, and so I wanted to widen my world, and reading is the best way to do that apart from traveling, because you get to consume a lot more information in a shorter span of time, and time is something that we're all running against. So for me, that was my biggest gain from reading these books, was my world was expanded. I didn't limit myself to reading certain topics. I read right from history to philosophy to biographies to self-help to many different things. I can't even remember now. I read a few of the classics. I read about mindfulness, I read about joy, I read about food, I read about sleep. I read about all these different things that affected my life and also that affected other people's life. I read about social things, I read about politics, I read about political histories, I read about people's contribution to the world. And so I didn't limit myself to what I was reading just because that was not my area of specialty or that was not my field. And that was one of the things that made me go in depth into something and get to know about that thing, even though it might not apply to my life. But as I read, as I kept looking at the world through the eyes of these authors, I could see so many connections, I could see so many patterns, and it made it easier for me to understand the world, understand the people in the world. And so that was the other thing that reading did for me, was that it gave me an understanding that on my own it would have taken me probably a little more time to get there. And so again, as I said, we are racing against time, so gaining that understanding faster, gaining that understanding sooner is so essential. Now bear in mind that I have always been a reader. I have always read non-fiction and fiction both, but intentionally making it a priority, making it a part of my life was something that I had to do. I had to take an effort. It didn't come very easily to me, because it came more natural to me to come home from a day of work and pick up a story and get into somebody else's life and escape my life. That was much easier. But to pick up a book and read about somebody's political opinion about what's going on in our country, it's a little bit harder, because there's a lot of facts, there's a lot of statistics, there's a lot of opinion, there's a lot of reality in it. But the gain I had from that is immense. The depth of insight I could gain from reading that was immense, and I don't regret taking that time away from anything else I could do. And I wish I had spent even more time, and I know I could have spent even more time reading. I just sometimes didn't give it the priority I should have. But I'm still learning to focus on my self-improvement. I'm still learning to take that effort in my own life so that I can be better at serving the world in whatever I'm doing. And that is another thing of reading, is that if you have any issue that you need to deal with, if you have anything that you're searching for, if there's anything that you want to overcome, there's a book on that. Sometimes you look online and find articles online which have no content actually. They don't have the depth, they don't have meat, so to speak, and you leave that page feeling empty because you try to find something on a topic and you didn't get what you were looking for. And that has never happened with a book, because there are so many experts in fields who have written books on certain topics, and when you look up these experts and you research a little bit about which author to read, you will never leave disappointed, because these experts are people who have given a lifetime to research. They have spent a lifetime doing what they did and then wrote about it, and it is their lifetime's worth of knowledge that is coming to you. And so whatever it is that you are facing, whatever it is that you want to overcome, whatever it is you want to learn about, you are getting their lifetime's worth of knowledge, and that knowledge is always valuable. You will never leave a book feeling as if you didn't gain anything from it. And so for me, whenever I was going through something and I wanted to learn about something, whether it was how to deal with a certain kind of people, or whether it was how to be more mindful about what I was eating, whether it was I was traveling to a new place and I wanted to know more about that place, I picked up the books, because the books had more information, the books had more content, the books had more depth in them. And I not only got the facts, but I got the opinions, I got the research, I got the experiences of people who have lived those lives, who have tried these things out in their lives. And so for me, my experience of reading these 57 books in this last year, hopefully it will become 60 in a couple of days, but reading these books was just an experience I will never forget, an experience that I will never regret. Though it does take time to read a book, it is valuable time, it is an investment in your own life, and it is not a frivolous waste of time as some people see it. Many people don't realize the importance of reading, but if you want to be more than you are right now, more than who you are right now, you have to read. There is no other way around it. And there are nowadays many other methods of reading. So if you don't like hauling around a physical book, you can read it on a Kindle. If you have a Kindle app on your phone, I think it works on that as well. If you have a tab Kindle app is there, so you can buy the book off Amazon and you can read it on whatever device you have, and it's cheaper as well. I think a Kindle version of a book is cheaper, and so that's one of the ways you can utilize your time. I always carry a book in my bag because I never know when I'm gonna get a chance to read. So even if I'm going to an event or a function where I think, or I even know sometimes that I'm not going to get the time to read, I still take a book, because you never know. You never know when you're sitting in the corner, you can just pull out a book and read, and that's an investment in your life that you have to make. Another way of consuming books is through listening to books. If you're someone who doesn't like to read and it's hard for you to focus, listening is another alternative. So there's the Audible app, and Audible has just recently come to India, so you can use audible.com, which is a American thing, or I don't know which country, but there's audible.com, which you can use, which has a higher subscription fee, and there is audible.in if you want to use that, and that has a lower subscription fee. There's a slight difference in the book range, I think, but you can find books that you want, and so you can listen to the book while you're driving, while you're cooking in the kitchen, while you are doing something else which requires your hands and feet but doesn't require your mind, and so that's really helpful. So you get through books a lot faster through that as well, depending on how you use your time, because if you're sitting in one place, it's faster to read a book. I find it faster to read a book, but if I am doing something else, it gets me to get through a book faster. So when I go out for a run, when I am doing something in the kitchen, when I'm driving, I listen to Audible and I finish books faster. And so it depends on how you want to consume books, but don't ever think that reading is a waste of time. Reading is not something that you need, because as I said, if you want to be better than who you are right now, if you want to be greater than who you are right now, if you want to do something of value in this world, you have to read, because you need to understand this world, you need to understand yourself, and you need to understand the perspective of others, and you cannot do that if you don't read.